what? We'll maybe do 3. What we're going to do is we're going to do a 3-value drawing of what we're looking at. Which for Michelle will feel like I'm going backwards in time because it'll be going like back to the beginning of the drawing. And do you have anyone have a kneaded eraser available? Because I'm going to need that. All right, excellent. Okay. Let's hope. Oop. Deviana, can you do me a favor? Can you head back to the sink? Can you get me a couple of paper towels? All right, so fundamentally what we're going to do is we're going to put a tone of vine charcoal over our whole page, and that's going to be our mid-value. That makes sense? So let's have a mid-value all the way across. And then we're going to then organize our drawing like a line drawing, and then we're going to decide where we see lights, and anywhere we see a light, we erase back, try as best as possible to get back to the lightest light of the page, which obviously on newsprint is not white, because newsprint is not pure white, but that's okay. Like over there by the. Excellent. Okay. So one of the things, though, we'll be talking about is some technique issues. Okay. Technique is not the most important thing, but technique can certainly solve you some problems. Okay. So one of the things you're going to notice is that before we do anything with that first tone, we're going to work that tone into the page. Notice that there's like little kind of like lines. That's from the fact that the vine charcoal has little imperfections because it's cheap vine charcoal. Probably made in Russia. And I'm working the tone into the page, and notice I'm using my hand first before I'm using the paper towel. That's on purpose. Notice also that I am not using my palm or my fingertips. When I use my finger, I use the side only, okay? And that's purposeful, okay? And that's for a reason. If you use your fingertips, use your palm, you're gonna get little grease marks, and it's gonna make little permanent marks on the paper, and you can't get off, and then you'll be like, this is not as good as I wanted it to be. If you work your tone in with your paper towel first, you're gonna wind up wiping away most of it, right? You work it in with your hand, kind of push it into the paper a little bit. Then you work it with your paper towel to get it smoother. So, two technical points right there. Point number 1. Let's see if we can find it. There it is. Point number 1, never palm, right? Never, ever, ever palm. Never fingertips, right? Side of fingers, side of palm, okay? It's important. Number 2, don't wipe with paper first. Work with your side of your hand first, then paper towel. And that's a technical issue, and so in some ways, it's not really that important. I'm not a big fan of emphasizing technique in drawing, right? I am definitely a principle over technique kind of guy. But those are 2 technical rules that if you follow, will just make everything about this process go a little bit smoother, will solve some problems for you, and then you'll be like, oh, I'm glad I followed Alex's advice. So notice I gave it a second coat because I was not satisfied with how dark it was. I wanted it to be a little bit darker. because it needs to function as my mid value, right? There's a limit though, like Vine charcoal worked onto your page is only going to get so dark. And actually, it varies from brand to brand. So some Vine charcoals are a little bit softer and darker. They also vary in color. You may not notice that this charcoal has a color, but it does have a color. Some are more on the purple side. Some are more blue-gray. So far, this has been a pretty boring drawing. Also, when I work with the paper towel, I'm not pressing too hard, at least not at first. So the goal is to have as close as possible to an even mid-value tone all the way across. Okay. Next step, our line drawing. We've been doing so much drawing that now this should just be easy peasy for us to just a simple still life, a couple of box things, a cat litter jug. I'm going to pretty much just concentrate on this front section right there, but I'll just kind of figure out where everything else fits. Because if you were doing this, one of the things you want to do at this stage is check to see whether this is going to be a good composition or not. Like, would we want it to come in a little bit so that is kind of cut off more cleanly, or do we want to expand over to the side? Now, for this unit, you're going to need both your kneaded eraser and your white plastic eraser. So make sure that you have your white plastic eraser. If you don't have it today, that's okay. You'll survive. But from here on out, you're going to need both a kneaded eraser and a white plastic eraser. Now I'm going to put a very light amount of tone in some places with my vine, but this isn't really to build a value. It's more just to tell me where I'm planning on putting and to kind of like think about how I want to organize my decision making. Everywhere that I'm coming in and putting in this tone, this just slightly darker tone with vine, I'm thinking about that going to pure black. Because this is just going to be a 3-value drawing. Next week we'll get to some 5-value drawings, but to start with, we're just doing a 3-value drawing. So it's just light is just with your eraser, mid-value is just what's here already on the page, right? And then all the darks are going to go to pure black. Now you may already notice, but wait, Alex, you say, I'm looking at like some of these values and like that isn't pure black. And it's like, very smart, good point. But for this first drawing, we're going to treat them all as pure black. When we get to 5 values and 7-value drawings, we will certainly note those distinctions more clearly. Also notice that some things are going to have to unify, such as, right, if this is going to go dark, which means in this case to pure black, and this is this cast shadow here, that means that that and that become one shape. Okay, that makes sense? Andre, that makes sense? Yes? Right, similarly, in just lots of different places, you're gonna find, once again, like here, frequently it'll be like that where the dark side of a form and the cast shadow from the form are going to be unified. But there might be other places, other kinds of situations where, to give an example, we have kind of a cast shadow from this form. This is a good example, right? From this form here. And then a cast shadow from this form onto this form here. And we only have, as we discussed, we only have 3 values. So we could say that this goes to pure black till about there. Then it's going to go back to mid value here. But this goes to pure black here. And all of that goes to pure black as well. Right? And then back here, the cast shadow on the wall also is going to go to pure black. Don't worry about the stripe drapery up there. I haven't taken it down, but I will take it down. All right, so does everyone see how I'm making these decisions? All right, let's see how this is going to work out. Does anyone have a white plastic eraser on them? We'll start with our kneaded eraser. Where's she going?
Her stuff was in the hall.
Maybe she left it in the design room.
I think she had her stuff in the hall.
Oh, okay. That could work too. All right, so I'm deciding that this front plane here is going to be a light. And that also the whole table plane here is going to go also to light, which, since we only have 3 values, we only have 1 light. Now there is a value difference from this to that, but we're just going to say it's all the same. I will probably keep just a little bit of that cast shadow at the bottom of the form, because that will help. No? Okay. Well, this is working pretty well. The knead eraser works okay. But you will, when you find that when we move to the to a 5 value, we really want to get as back to pure, as not white, but pure, the light of the paper as much as possible. Now, only, like, there is a shadow line to this form. Only put those in if A, you need it to make a distinction, and B, you see it. If you don't see it, right, just let it go. Such as right here. Okay? Because this top plane of the box is going to be a mid value, right? And the wall back here is going to be our mid. And why is it a mid? It's a mid because A, the local color of the wall is not as like light in value as the whites of the objects. And B, it's a mid because the wall isn't as lit as, like, it's not getting as much light on it as most of the objects. Notice on this form that we see that there's yet another value, right? We see a highlight right there, but we don't have the room to to show that yet, because we only have 3 values in order to make these distinctions. Also notice that initially I brought this value over, but I'm more thinking in terms of what I'm going to make dark, like the pure black dark. I'm going to move it over a little bit. I'm only start kind of at the core shadow point and then over. Now I see a little bit of reflective light there, and I think I might, when I put in my dark stark, I might capture that. Also notice, right, how by only having this light be on the very side of that form right there, how that allows me to show like how I'm using just the same set of values, but I'm showing a distinction, right? Like that this hole looks different because there's so much of the light, and that overall, that top plane looks like it's getting less light because we only see the lightest value right on the edge. That was a bit of a mess. Maybe I can do better than that. All right, let's see what it looks like with our darks. So I'm coming in with my black Conte. I don't have to necessarily go to like pure black with my black Conte, but what I do need to do is make sure that it is the same, right? It needs to be dark enough and even enough that everything that is dark feels like all one value. Now notice, we can see that not only we can see that this isn't pure black, but we can also see that this changes in value from there to there. But in this situation, because we only have, the rules are we only have 3 values to work with, we can't really notate that. So we just have to let it go. This unit's kind of like frozen. Right? Oh, shoot. I said that I was going to save a bit of mid value there, and then I didn't. Can we fix that? Yes, we can. Let's examine how we can do that. So there's a bit of mid value right there. Fortunately, I didn't go too dark with it. One of the advantages of drawing where you put a tone of vine down first is that then, even though you have Conte on the page, the Conte is a lot easier to erase. So I'm going to erase that area, and I'm going to wind up actually erasing it a little bit too much. That's okay, because then I'm going to come back with my vine. And put it in as a mid value. If I can get a good edge on my vine. All right, carry on. I'm just going to put in this plane right here. And then I'll kind of end the demo. Because hopefully everyone feel like you can see, based on what I accomplished there, you can see how that would be applied to the whole thing, right? Okay. For most of your views, you can kind of go with some of the same assumptions I did, or at least observations I did, which was that the white sheet is probably going best to be treated as the same value as the lights on your boxes, whereas the wall is probably best to be treated as same as your mid value. Don't do the everything is mid value, like the whole background is mid value kind of thing, like where your objects are just floating in weird ether space. That's not a good look. Keep in mind that you can still fix your drawing. What else do I want to say about it? And then, is simply just kind of looking and saying, where do I see mid values and where do I see darks, where do I see lights? And some mid values are going to be different than others, and then it's just a matter of like, is it useful for you? Like a good example is like this upper shoulder of the cat litter jug. Yes, this is significantly lighter than that, and significantly lighter than the value of the wall behind us. But the question is, for the purposes of the drawing, does making that distinction of kind of showing this is a mid value and then up here as a light again, kind of thing, something like that. Does that communicate what's going on with the light a little bit better? It's a judgment call. And I think I would go with this being the light and then that being a mid value. Yeah. And so it's about kind of choosing and making decisions. Speaking of decisions, I gotta fix that. So, technical issues. Let's review, right? Number one, you start with a tone. When you start with your tone, what are the things you are absolutely not allowed to do?
Don't use your palm.
Don't use your palm. Don't use your tip of your fingers, right? Okay? Don't even ask why. I explained why, but don't even ask why. At this point, just don't do it, right? You use the side of your hand, side of your finger only, right? You work it in, and why do you work it in with your hand first before you wipe it with your paper towel?
It gets it into the paper better.
Exactly. It pushes it into the paper so it sticks. If you wipe it with your paper towel first, you just wind up erasing most of what you just put down. Okay? So that's 3. Point 3 would be when you're building up that mid-value tone, you probably want to do 2 or 3 layers before you get to a value that you're happy about. But make sure each time you do a layer that you work it in. Otherwise, if it's not worked into the paper, it's just floating on the surface and then it's going to make a mess and you're not going to have any control. Okay. Then a line drawing, you organize the objects and the space, and you start thinking about where the lights and darks are. And notice in Vine, I kind of blocked in sort of, this is where I'm thinking my dark shadow shapes are. This is where I'm thinking mid-value shapes are. And then at a certain point, you start erasing, and anything that is a light, you erase back as best as possible to the lightest value of the paper, right? Everything. And everything that you think is a dark, you make a dark. Doesn't have to be pure black, right? But a good dark, and it needs to be consistent. It can't change in value, right? From place to place. This has to be the same value there, everywhere, okay? And same with your mid value, and same with your lights.
And we're using Conte for that.
Hmm?
And we're using Conte for that.
Yeah, Conte for your darks, Vine for your mid values. And maybe at the end of class, I'll do a demo on how to think about starting a 5 value. Okay, we good? We excited?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. We've got lamps in the drawing room. It's crazy. All right, let's get to it.
Okay.
Woo-hoo.